Good morning, everybody. Welcome in to another episode of the Mavs Step Back Podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Trigg. You can find me, as always, on Twitter at Dalton_Trigg. You can find the pod account at Step Back Mavs. Be sure to go over to DallasBasketball.com, where we're churning out content weekly, regardless of the Mavs not being in the playoffs. We've got a ton of stuff up there, and that will continue to be the case throughout the summer. And the closer we get to the draft, the more in-depth draft content we will have on individual prospects and potential trade scenarios and stuff of that nature. So definitely pay attention to DallasBasketball.com over there, where myself, Grant Afseth, Michael Mulford, Richie Witt, Mike Fisher, a handful of us over there are pitching in stuff left and right and giving our different takes and perspectives on things. So be sure to check all that out. Before we get into the main topic of today's pod, which is some conflicting Kyrie Irving reports and, which one do we believe? Before we get into all that, I just wanted to quickly recap what has been going on in the NBA playoffs. I realized over the last couple of pods that I didn't talk as much about that, but we have the conference finals going on. It's been exciting, but it hasn't been as competitive series-wise. There's been some theatrics. There's been some, guys getting up in other guys' faces like Jimmy Butler and Grant Williams in that game 2 in Boston. It gave you a feel of like old school NBA basketball, and it was nice. I mean, that's kind of, I feel like the league needs more of that. That felt like I was, back as a teenager watching some of that old school basketball with like Dirk and Duncan and Kobe and, that era of players. So I like it. Now, as far as the series goes on both sides, I do wish it was a little bit more competitive just from a NBA fan viewing perspective, but it is what it is. The Nuggets have a commanding 3-0 lead over LeBron and the Lakers. The Miami Heat, the 8-seeded Miami Heat, have stormed out to a 3-0 lead of their own over the 2-seed Boston Celtics. So this Cinderella run for Jimmy Butler and the Heat continues because, and I mean, maybe we shouldn't call it a Cinderella run because, I mean, this Miami team is more talented than just being an 8 seed. Everybody was kind of shocked that they were at the bottom of the standings and having to fight their way into the playoffs because of how they underperformed in the regular season. I think everybody figured like, okay, this team should be better than what they are. And they've peaked at the right time. I mean, it's been fun to watch. I personally don't like the Miami Heat for reasons. I mean, those reasons are obvious. 2006, 2011, even though the Mavs got their revenge and won. It's just something that's kind of ingrained with you as a Mavs enthusiast. So, but that being said, I like the way this Heat team plays. They're hard-nosed. They're easy to coach. They make the right plays. They make winning plays. Jimmy Butler is super easy to root for, given how he had to, fight growing up to get to this point where he's at. This is the second time. I mean, they still got to win one more game, but I'm assuming that, the Celtics aren't going to become the first team to ever come back from 0-3. This will be the second time that he has pretty much willed a team to the NBA Finals. The last time was in the 2020 NBA bubble, where they lost to the Los Angeles Lakers. So Jimmy Butler is awesome. I think he would be exactly the type of player that the Mavs need on their roster, to kind of turn things around. I desperately wanted the Mavs to trade for him when he was in Minnesota and up for grabs in trade talks and everything. But, it it didn't happen. And people said that he wouldn't mesh with Carlisle and Luka. And maybe that's true. But, I mean, that was the vision with all that. I could see Jimmy Butler being the linchpin for what we want the Mavs to be going forward. So the Heat, they are on the verge of making the NBA Finals as the 8th seed, and they will most likely be playing two-time MVP Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets, who have a chance to put away the Los Angeles Lakers in Game 4 tonight in Los Angeles. So we'll see how that goes. I think they have a chance to have the full sweep. I predicted a gentleman's sweep before the series started in that one. But I could see the Lakers getting hot and pulling out at least one win at home. They were undefeated at home until that Game 3 2 nights ago. So I could see it, but then once it swings back to Denver for Game 5, if that happens, I think it's over. But either way, I think it either ends tonight or Wednesday night. So I think we're very, very likely going to have a Nuggets versus Heat NBA Finals. I know some people are, they feel indifferent about it. They kind of don't think it's enough juice. I think it's plenty of juice. I love it, especially since, Markieff Morris isn't on the Heat anymore, but you had that beef between Nikola Jokic and Markieff Morris from the Shove, a while back, and Jimmy Butler got into it with Jokic, and I think there's more juice there than people realize, and I think it's going to be a fun series. I'm looking forward to it. As an NBA fan, I mean, you kind of, again, you have as a Mavs fan, you have your feelings about the Miami Heat overall, but then as like just a general NBA fan, you're always you almost root for the underdog. So it's gonna be weird in this next series because I like Jimmy Butler, but I don't like the Heat. But I like an underdog story. They're the 8th seed. But the Nuggets, I like Nikola Jokic. He's Luka's best friend or one of his best friends. Their wives are best friends. And I just really like the way they play basketball. And you've seen the growth from Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. And I think that, it just kind of feels like it's their time. But I've also learned throughout this playoff stretch that you don't want to count out the Miami Heat at all because none of these series have been really even that close. They took care of the top seeded Bucks in 5 games. They beat the Knicks in 6 games, and they're on the verge of sweeping the Celtics. So they are for real. So even though they're probably going up against the top seed Denver Nuggets, nothing's a given. So fun stuff in the NBA playoffs. Now I wanted to talk about a couple of different Kyrie Irving reports because we have some conflicting reports going on. And let me see. This one was from Brian Windhorst, ESPN's Brian Windhorst on his Hoop Collective podcast. I'm going to play a couple of these clips for y'all, and then I'm going to, give the conflicting report of what Eric Pincus with Bleacher Report is saying about Kyrie Irving. So hold on just a second here.
It would take a little bit of maneuvering, and Kyrie would probably have to not take the max, or they would have to work on something with Dallas, but they can get there. They can keep Reeves and get Kyrie if they make that a priority. They risked going right back to where they were before, which is a top-heavy team that doesn't have, because the one thing that they did have, they with Vanderbilt, with Hachimura, they added that they could play different ways. Darvin had different hands he could.
Okay, so he's rambling a little bit on that one, so I'm gonna cut that one short. And instead of playing this next one, I'm just gonna read it to y'all because you know how podcast stuff can do it. The important stuff gets kind of wedged in between, and there's some extra ad lib and all that. But my guy Grant, he tweeted out this clip where it was the same podcast, and he said the Mavericks have more chips on the table. They're still holding, what they invested to get Kyrie. If Kyrie stays, let's see. He says, if Kyrie says, hey, I'm going to the Lakers and I'll go to the Lakers for this and you can trade me and then get something back, I think the Mavs backs are put up against the wall and they probably have to cooperate. Okay, so before I get to this conflicting report, because Windhorst, we know how Windhorst is. He tries to do anything possible to will help for LeBron James because he's a little biased there. So anytime he has a chance to help LeBron, he's out there trying to do it. But I mean, look, I don't think the Mavs backs are against the wall. Yeah, they have some, assets that they gave away to get Kyrie, two starters and a 2029 unprotected first round pick. But, I think given what the Lakers have to offer, I'm not sure that losing Kyrie for nothing is better than what the Lakers have to offer. I'm definitely not taking D'Angelo Russell back for Kyrie Irving. That's completely off the table. That's the Mavs would rather have air than to have that happen. It's not going to happen. Maybe if you worked out like a double sign and trade where the Mavs get Austin Reeves and, another piece plus the Lakers 2027 or 2029 first round pick, whichever one that they didn't trade to Utah. Maybe you work something out there if possible, but that's just, that's assuming that there is no possible way for them to re-sign Kyrie Irving. Because to me, the most likely scenario based on how this new CBA is, and that's another thing I wanted to mention too, all of these people, including Brian Windhorst and all these Lakers fans and media and whoever is talking about Kyrie Irving going to the Lakers, I don't think they understand just how difficult that is going to be with this new CBA being implemented. It's going to be hard. I mean, even if they did a sign and trade for Kyrie, given their cap situation, they would still have to, renounce the rights of certain guys, and that's not including the pieces they'd have to add into the sign and trade after that happened. Like they would have to completely gut their depth to add Kyrie Irving. Even if he took a slight discount, they would still have to do that. So I just don't see that being possible. I understand that, people are going to throw the Lakers out there because it generates a lot of buzz, and that's just how NBA media works. But look, I just don't see it happening. I think the most likely scenario is the Mavs re-signing Kyrie, and then later down the line, if it doesn't work, then you have Kyrie on contract already, and you can do a straight trade to the Lakers or whoever it is he's wanting to go to. And maybe that's something that the Mavs and Kyrie talk about, behind the scenes, later on. If this partnership doesn't work, how lenient are we going to be in, sending you where you want to go, and what's the minimum we want to get back? We're not just going to send you anywhere, but if where you want to go has assets that we like, we'll try our best to work it out, something like that. So I feel like given the new CBA, that's the most likely scenario for both sides here. And I think all this buzz about Kyrie going elsewhere is just that buzz. So all of that being said by Brian Windhorst leads me to this other report from Eric Pincus. It says, this was from my guy, Jay at Mavs Film Room. He said Eric Pincus reports that one source tells him the Mavs and Kyrie Irving had a handshake deal on a new contract prior to the trade with the Nets. He also quotes an agent who has heard that Kyrie is returning to Dallas on a 3+1 player option max contract. Now look, this is you can look at this and be like, hey, who do you believe? The ESPN guy who is biased toward LeBron, or the Bleacher Report guy who who is worked in other places too. But like I said, I mean, given everything, given the cap situations, given the new CBA, given what we've seen and heard from Kyrie and the Mavs since the trade happened, I think this is the more believable one. I could definitely see this one happening. Have a 3+1 player option max contract. You try to build around Kyrie and Luka, who had historic offense uh, when playing together. You try to put more defensive pieces around them and make it work. And then if it just doesn't work, you have a trade asset worth more now on a potentially 4-year deal, but more than likely 3, because Kyrie can opt out after his last year. So um, the idea that Kyrie Irving wouldn't have any trade value is kind of silly to me, because everybody said that about him before this last trade. There were multiple offers for him that involved first round picks. So I just feel like, and I feel like his reputation will kind of get rebuilt, and he'll be viewed a little bit differently after a year or so in Dallas if he stays, because you could already see how that was starting to turn for him in just 20 games for the Mavs after the trade deadline. The media covered him fairly, in my opinion. It wasn't any of that extracurricular, stuff to try and get him to say something to blow up a headline. And, it wasn't trying to just get him in trouble, so to speak. And I think he appreciates that. The Mavs are, sometimes they can, whether y'all like it or not, the Mavs are probably one of the best in the league at treating people like family. Now, sometimes that can be to their detriment because they end up holding on to guys a little longer than what they should, like Dwight Powell, so to speak. But I think that Kyrie Irving enjoys that aspect of it too, and I think he will be back on that new contract, and then they'll go from there. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. That's fine. You find a trade partner. You go a different route. But I just don't think you can. I just don't think you can do a sign and trade for him right now, given how complicated it is. So, guys, that's going to do it for another episode of the Mavs Step Back Podcast. Be sure to go rate, and subscribe on all your favorite podcast platforms. If you don't mind, give me a like and a subscribe on YouTube, because, again, I'm starting to do a lot more YouTube content these days now that my Wi-Fi has the bandwidth for something like that. But be sure to go give me a like and subscription there. And I'm going to have some more guests on here throughout the summer, and hopefully a big Mavs guest here in the next couple weeks if things go the way I think they should. But we'll just have to see about that. I'll give y'all an update on that when I can. And also, if you have a beard and you want a good deal on a really good beard hedger, manscaped.com. They have a new beard hedger that you can get 20% off and free shipping if you go to their website and use the promo code MAVSTEPBACK. So go to manscaped.com, put in the code MAVSTEPBACK. You'll get 20% off and free shipping on that brand new beard hedger that they have. I have one myself. I love it. I think you'll love it too. It has 20 different links that you can adjust it with one swivel deal on the handheld device, and you don't have to switch out guards and stuff like that. So it's really cool. Go check it out. And if you leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, it automatically enters you for a chance to win giveaways for this summer with like Mav Step Back design t-shirts, or, into next season when we start giving away some tickets and stuff of that nature. So be sure to go and do that. Guys, appreciate it. Y'all have a great rest of your Monday. Let's have a good week. We'll see you next time.